Daf Tzadi Beis Amud Beis, the Mishnah on top, 2 lines from the top. So like the Mishnah, Hamaskaven lo haitzi lefanov uvolo la'achar potter. If a person intended to carry an item in front of him, and it turned around and it was in back of him. So for instance, he had a money tied to a belt, and it turned around and now it went in back of him. As we discussed earlier, the person is chai for itself. He carries kederach in the normal way. In an abnormal way, he's not chai for that. Now, if his intent over here is to carry in a certain way, and it turned around, it twisted around, and it was not the way he intended to carry it out, so Rashi says over here, it's potter because it's considered a misasek. It's not even considered to be the action that he intended to do. And so person is misasek is a person if he intends to do one action and inadvertently he did a different action. It's not that he forgot about Yisur Shabbos. It's not if he knew that it was Shabbos and he knew what the Yisurim were. For instance, he picks up his hand and he bumps into and he turns on a light switch. He never intended to turn on the light switch. He did an action that was not the intended action. So here also Rashi said this is considered misasek. He didn't intend to carry this way, and he's potter. But if he intended to carry it in the back and it turned to the front, then he is chayv. We'll see in the Gemara. Be'emes amro, loshon of be'emes is the halacha. This is the halacha be'emes amro. Ha'isha chageres b'sinar. If an isha is wearing a underskirt, in such a case, if there's an item that's being transported by attached to the skirt, whether it's in the front or the back, she's chayiv. Why? She can't really is chayzer. That's not considered unintended. That's not considered abnormal. That is the normal way. That's the normal way. And when she walks, that it turns around. And it turns so it's considered to be anticipated and normal for it to go from the back to the front to the back, so she's chayeves. Rabbi Yehuda says even couriers, even messengers who carry things around their neck or around their waist, it's also in the course of them traveling and in the course of them in their movements, it does turn around, so it's also they considered chayav because it's usual for it to turn around. There's a machlokes rishonim. If Rabbi Yehuda is arguing on the, the Tanakama is arguing on Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says af mekabel piskin. The Tanakama says that by an isha is the Tanakama. Does he say that's the case by the isha, but by the couriers it is not as common. And over there, so perhaps we will say in that case that they are potter. The potter, well, the Reisha says that we intended to carry it in front of him, and it turned around and it now twisted and turned to the back. Then we say he's potter. Why he's potter? Why is he potter? Because that was not his intent. It was not his intended action. So the Gemara, well, in the other case, the reverse case, it should be the same thing. Then we should say the same thing. And la'achrav in the back, and it turned to the front, we should also say that he is potter. Why does the Mishnah say he's chayiv? It was also not intended. So Amar Rabbi Elazar Tavra, it's a kasha, misha shanazu, lo shanazu. We have to say it's a machlokes. We have to say it's difficult, and because of this difficulty, we have to say it's really a machlokes tanoim. There's two different opinions. So that's what Rabbi Elazar says. Amar Rava, he says, my kusha, what's the kasha? What's the problem? Why do we have to say it's Tavra and it's two different opinions? It's not a kasha. Perhaps the case in the ratio was Lafonav and it turned to the back. Hainu time of the potter. Why do we say it's potter in that case? Also the honor Shmira B'chusa. because his kavanah was for a higher level of shmira. He wanted to be in front of him. In front of him, he can watch it. He's aware if it fell or got stolen. So that's a shmira ma'ula. That's a higher quality of shmira. If that was his intent, and it turned to the back, and it ended up being a shmira pchusa, that's not the type of carrying that he wanted to do. He didn't want to carry it in a way that it was not in front of him, that it could be lost, people could steal it and take it from him. So that's why he's potter. But but perhaps in the case where it was in back of him and it turned to the front, hainu time the chayev. Why is he chayev? Because in this kavan shmira b'chusa, because he didn't have an intent necessarily for a high level of shmira, but also beyond shmira mula, and it on its own and inadvertently it turned to better shmira. But he's certainly happy with that. It's not an unintended type of carrying a ma'isa. He's certainly nicha with that type of a carrying. So what's the kasha? It's very clear the difference between the two cases. Elamai kusha, rather than what is the kasha, and what was Rabbi Elazar referring to when he said that it's a tavra? What is the kasha? It's not the way it was stated previously. The kasha is diyuk of the Masechet. It's the diyuk of the Mishnah. Diyuk of the Masechet kasha. Because we learned in the Reisha Miskavan Lohaitzi Lefanov Ubal La'achrav, he intended to be in the front and it turned to the back part. So let's make a diyuk hala'achrav Ubal La'achrav chayav. So it's only because it was now in the reverse position. But if he intended to take it from the back, now, even though carrying it in the back is not quite the norm, I would still say halachrav balachrav chayav. It's only where it was not his unintended action, where we say that he wanted to do it in the front to turn to the back, his potter. But if he intended to take it in the back and he carried it on the back, you'd say chayav. I aim a seifa. Let's make a dig from the seifa. That's not that way. Aim a seifa la'achrav ubalo lefanov hu the chayav. It says la'achrav, he intended in the back and it came to the front. That's where he's chayav. La'achrav ubal la'achrav potter, but let us say that it's la'achrav ubal la'achrav, that it's potter. So the diuk over here is mashma that la'achrav, if he intended la'achrav and he did carry off, that he would be potter. So the diuk from the Reisha and the diuk on the Seifa is a stira. From the diuk of the Reisha, it's mashma la'achrav ubal la'achrav chayav. The diuk of the Seifa is mashma la'achrav ubal la'achrav potter. And on that, Amar Rav Elazar Tava, that's a kasha misha shana zu lo shana zu. And on that, that's where he said it must be two different tanoim. Amar Rav Ashi, still my kusha. Still, what's the kasha? Dilma loimi boy koma. Maybe it's loimi boy. Loimi boy la'achrav bo la'achrav the chayav. Not only la'achrav bo la'achrav that it's chayav. Where do we say we make the diuk? We say that if it's lefanav bo la'achrav that it's pot. Matzmer mashma that is la'achrav bo la'achrav that you're chayav. Loimi boy over there you're chayav something machshavta. There he's machshavta when he intended in the back and he took it in the back. That was his intended machshava, so he's chayiv. Certainly there is chayiv. Elafil la'achrav bo la'fanav, but even la'achrav and it turned to the front, it's shrichale. Because why do I need that case? I might have thought that was not his intent. His intent was taken to carry it from the back. And it turned to the front, you might think that, well, that's not his intent. So therefore, he should be potter in that. So lo l'chayim, kemash malan. So that's why it has to teach us that niskam l'shmir pchusav also biyar shmir ma'ula d'chayiv. That is telling you that even though it was not his intent, but notwithstanding that, he's still chayiv because Saif kol Saif, he ended up with a higher level of shmira, so he's chayiv. Meaning that lomi boya, and the diuk that la'achrav bo la'achrav is chayiv, then certainly that's the diuk of the Reisha, and certainly you're chayiv in that case because this was intended haitzah. That's the way he intended to take it out. But you might have thought that the achrav bo la'fanav that should be potter, so the Sefer has to tell me that even in that case you're chayiv, even though it was not as intended haitzah, because there was a shmira ma'ula. So let's say that in fact that this is a machlekes tanoim, if la'achrav la'achrav, if it is chayav or potter. So what would be the svara of saying la'achrav la'achrav that he's potter? What is the svara to say that? I mean, he intended to take a la'achrav, so it's no misasek, that was his intent. So l'chayra, the svara to say that it's potter is because perhaps we should consider it kalachayad. We should consider it abnormal. That's not the way to transport these types of things. It can get lost or stolen. So that's not the proper way. That would be the issue over here. So let's say it's a machlokes tanaim. Also, if he takes that out in a money belt up here, lamala, and the mouth, the opening is facing up. That's the normal way. It's in front of him. The mouth is open. It's not facing down. If it's facing down, the money can fall out. Even if it's tied, the money can fall out. The proper way is where the opening is up, so it's more protected. So he's chayav. If the opening is facing downwards, Rabbi Yehuda mechayev v'chacham paicha. It's a machlokes. Aren't you moida in achar bal la'achar so it's chayav? So similarly, in this case, we should also be chayav. And the Chum said back to him, are you not moida that kalachar yad, or some have the gifts not kalachar yad, but la'achar yad, and with his foot, and he does it in an abnormal way as potter? So I said one halacha, they said a different halacha. And I could not respond. I had nothing to answer back from what they said to me. And they didn't have a response to what I said. So they said, he said, aren't you moida? Rabbi Yehuda said, aren't you moida v'lach bal la'achra? Michlal de potter rabbanan. Must be that rabbanan argue in that case. So the way the Rishonim explained it is that he's saying loy matzasi tshuva, and they loy matzah tshuva. So even though I asked from the case of lach bal la'achrav, and they had no response to me on that, but nevertheless they maintained that the halacha is that pia lamata rather, that they maintained their potter. So must be that. Well, must be that they also would say balachra balachra, that is potter, because since they didn't answer back and they didn't say that what you raya from balachra balachra is not a raya, therefore it must be, if they maintain that pia lamata you're potter, it must be that they also maintain balachra balachra that you're potter. How can you learn pshat like that? You can't learn the machlokes that way, because of the tamech, the kamar le'iatam moedim, it says iatam moeda, that are you not moeda in the case of lachar yad or lachar ragel mechalda mechayiv Rabbi Yehuda? You mean to say that Rabbi Yehuda is mechayiv v'kalachar yad? Can't be. V'atanya lachar yad or ragel devra kol potter. So when they said, aren't you moeded to the case of lachar yad or lachar ragla, that you're potter, Lamaisa he is moeded in such a case, because everybody's moeded in such a case in lachar yad that you're potter. Ella, so what's the pshat? Ella la'achra v'bal la'achra divakol chayiv. No, so the pshat is that la'achra v'bal la'achra, everyone holds your chayiv, because that was his machshava, and it's not considered to be abnormal. La'achar yad la'achar v'ragla divakol potter, and everyone is moida that la'achar yad ragla, that's kalachar yad, that's abnormal, and you're potter. Keep ligi. So where is the machlokes? It's only bepundalso pia lamata. It's a money belt that's facing down. Mar medama le'lachra bal la'achra. One is medama to lachra bal la'achra. Rabbi Yehuda's medama to that case, and he says just like lachra bal la'chayiv, here also you're chayiv. And just like over there, we don't consider it abnormal. Here also, we don't consider it abnormal. And the Chachamim are medama tachla yad v'ragla. It's considered kalachar yad. It's not normal, and you're potter. So it's not a machlokes tanai. Lachar bal la'achar dira kol chayim. Be'emes amru isha tana. Kol be'emes halachi. When we say be'emes, that's the halacha. So by an isha, if it turns in the skirt that she's wearing, she's transporting something with attached to her skirt, and it turns from the front to the back, she's chayav. Rabbi Yehuda Ma'afna Kabbalah Piskin, even the couriers, Tana Shekain Alabari Malchus Oisim Kain, the messengers of the king, then they tie things around them, and they run quickly to do the king's service, and it does turn from front to back, etc. So he holds it also are chayiv. It's considered the anticipated, and it's considered normal in that case. Zok the Mishnah, if a person takes out a loaf of bread to the Reshus Harabim, he's chayiv. Obviously, he's chayiv, it's carrying. So the point is, though, however, but if two people carry it out, then they're potter. Then they're potter because, as you see from the Gemara, there's a limud that a person has to do the malach entirely on his own. But however, but if it's such a case, in a certain case where a person could not have carried it out on his own, for whatever reason, as Tosfos explains, whether it's too heavy or whether the way it's situated and that it was too awkward, he could not, lemaisa, in fact, he could not carry it out on his own. And then they are chai. But Rav Shimon says no, even if they need each other, there is still potter. So the Gemara will discuss this at length. Amar Yehuda, Zok the Gemara, Amar Yehuda, Amar Rav, Amar Abai, Amar Masechet Tana, Zeh Yachol, Zeh Yachol. If both of them could have done the malach on their own, and they do it jointly, they do it together, Rav Meir Machai, Rav Meir says they're chai, Rav Yehuda, Rav Shimon Paicher, but they say they're potter. Zeh Eina Yachol, Zeh Eina Yachol. If neither of them could do it on their own, they needed each other. Rav Yehuda, Rav Meir Machai. Then Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir said you're chai. Rav Shimon Paiter. Zeh Yachol, Zeh Eina Yachol. If one can and the other one cannot, Divra Kol Chayiv. Then everyone agrees they're chayiv. Then we'll discuss who is the one that's chayiv. Tanya Namahachi. Hamayit Zekikra L'Reshus Harabim Chayiv. If two people take it out, Rav Meir Mechayev. Rav Meir says you're chayiv. So that's Rav Meir, like we said before, Zeh Yachol, you're chayiv. Rav Yehuda Omer, Im Lo Yachol Echad V'Yitzia Shnayim Chayam. If one person couldn't do it, they need each other in the chayiv. But Im La Paturim. Rav Shimon Paiter, and Rav Shimon says even in the case you're also potter. So the more we'll discuss this now in the next Amud in detail.